Hi, welcome to the first day of class in Science 7. My name is Sherwin Kim Castaño and I will be your teacher for science in the whole school year. To start with, introduce to you our lesson. I will first define what is science and to further explain, I will introduce to you the lesson for scientific methods. What are these and what are its definition? Okay. So first, let us define what is science. So I will show you paragraphs wherein it shows sentences that would define or would interpret what is science. So you just have to understand, or you just have to answer whether it is true or false. You might have to make 3, 2, 1. You might have to take time to read the paragraph. If you need more time to read the paragraph, you can take a screenshot of it in your phones and then let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, so let's see if you answered correctly. Okay, so the first paragraph is science is concerned with understanding how nature and the physical world work. So this statement is true, wherein everything you see around you, everything you hear, and everything that your brain understands is what we call science. Even everything that is seen outside of our planet is still called science. Number 2, science can prove anything, solve any problem, or answer any question. So this statement is false. So science actually attempts to disprove ideas or is a hypothesis. So science is limited strictly to solving problem about the physical and natural world. As what I've explained earlier, science is everything that you see physically or you observe in the natural world. And explanation based on supernatural forces such as aliens and ghosts are not considered to be science, even though even though there are theories that there are living things or there are something living outside of Earth. Okay, so the next one. Any study done carefully and based on observation is scientific. So this is false. So science must follow certain rules, and the rules of science make the scientific process as objective as possible. So we do not consider anything that is subjective as science. So it has to be objective. Therefore, it has to prove facts. Okay. So science can be done poorly. So this is true because everything we can do, everything we do can be done poorly. Also science. So science could be done poorly in a way wherein the things that are not done correctly, that are not done properly could also be called still science, but then the quality is not there. So anything done scientifically, next statement, can be relied upon to be accurate and reliable. So this one is false. So anything that is said to be scientifically done is not to be trusted. Even though there is a word scientifically done, you don't have to trust it with 100%. So as what I've said, science can be done poorly. The next statement, different scientists may get different solution to the same problem. This one is true. So even though there are the same problem, they have the same problem, different scientists may get different solutions to the same problem. So even though they have the same problem, they could still do something else, or they could still arrive uh, to a different answer even though they have the same problem, even though they have different solution but then the same problem. They could still arrive with a different answer even though their problem is different. Okay, so results can be influenced by the race, gender, nationality, religion, politics, or economic interest of the scientist. So if the scientist has a different belief and proceeded with a different solution, he or she could arrive at a different answer, came from the same question or the same problem. Sampling of measurement bias can result in different solution to the same problem. Okay, so it's just the same thing. Knowledge of what science is, what it can and cannot do, and how it works is important for all people. So this is true. So science could do something negative and something positive. It could be a learning process, whether it could benefit or it could destroy lives. It is still considered science. So it, uh, 3, 2, 1. It is still important for all the people. Different results uh, could still be uh, helpful to other people or to other scientists for them to improve the problem that they are encountering. So people need to be able to evaluate scientific information in order to make informed decision about the following. Okay. So a hypothesis becomes a theory, which becomes a law. So this is a very much this is a major misconception when it comes to science, that hypothesis could evolve into a theory and eventually becomes a law. This is very wrong, because hypothesis, theory, and a law is very much different from each other. Just like an apple, an orange, and a pineapple is different from each other. Even though you grow an apple, it would not bear a pineapple. So this just means that the hypothesis to be exact, is a prediction, or it is just a limited information of it is a limited compilation of information in one sentence. Therefore, there are no facts involved. While a theory is an upscale version of hypothesis, but hypothesis does not evolve with a theory. So a theory is something with a more reliable source, but then it is not with a more reliable source on something that is observed, but does not define or does not describe the thing that is being observed. While law is the description or the correct statement of the thing being observed. So this is the very common misconception of science teachers when it comes to defining what is a hypothesis. The next one, hypothesis is an educated guess. This is also false. So a hypothesis is a testable statement based upon research. So even though you have this is the thing that you will be basing upon your research. So you are trying to prove something, therefore you are trying to guess. This is not a guess, to be exact. This is a prediction. Example, when we say that plants, when we say that I'm going to grow thinner when I exercise. So, for example, when I say that I'm going to go thinner when I exercise. So it's somewhat true, but at the same time, you have to involve different interaction or different elements for you to become thinner. Therefore, your hypothesis is a prediction that you are going to go thinner when you exercise. So the hypothesis is an educated guess is a false. Is a general and a universal scientific method exist. So this one is also false. So I will read to you why is it false. Scientists approach and solve problems with imagination, creativity, prior knowledge, and perseverance. So this is not a universal thing. You must have, for example, you are going to climb a ladder. You are not going to step on the fourth one if you are not going to step on the first one. So you have to understand, or you have to have knowledge of one thing before you proceed to another one. So this statement is very false. So these are the same method used by all problem solvers. And a lesson to be learned is that science is no different from other human endeavors when puzzles are investigated. Okay. So what is science to be exact? I have been a science teacher for 3 years and more, and I have studied my major, which is science, and I have arrived to a much simpler definition of science. So science is a systematic arrangement of knowledge. So what does this mean? So science is a system, therefore it has to be from lowest understandable knowledge to a much higher thinking skill. So that is my definition of what is science. As long as everything around you is being observed, everything that you know, everything you see, everything that is being observed, everything you can touch, those are science. Okay, so what science is not? Science is not proof, even though you have facts, but then it could still be disapproved, or it could still be somewhat a hoax. Science is certainty. You are not sure of everything when it comes to science. That is why we involve the scientific method wherein we are going to tackle also. So science is belief. This is where the church and science disagrees. When we say belief, we involve feelings. We involve feelings in our belief. Science does not involve feelings because science is objective. Therefore, we don't have feelings involved. It is unbiased. So science could also be is not about faith. So as it is the same with belief, it is not faith. Okay, so let's proceed with our next topic. Okay, so what is the scientific method? This method is more likely to be used by scientists. And for our instance, the scientific method is more likely to be used in everything that we do. It is our daily life. So the scientific method involves a series of steps that are used to investigate the natural occurrence. So these steps are problem, or what is your problem? What are you asking for, or what are you going to study about? Research, what are the things that are involved? So what are the things that you need to know? So that there will be a path in which your problem should go, or in which your problem should be answered. So formulate a hypothesis. You are going to predict what is going to happen for you to have a view of what you are trying to point out, or what you are trying to find the answer to your question. Next is to experiment. You are going to test your research to test the variables that you are going to use. So we are going to elaborate it furthermore. So collect and analyze the results. So after 3, 2, 1. So after you have done the experiment, you are going to jot down, or you're going to collect everything that you have observed on the experiment, and you are going to translate it into something that is more understandable. conclusion. You're going to conclude that your hypothesis is correct. So, example, you have, as what I said earlier, example, you heard, example, your hypothesis is that I will grow thinner if I exercise. So, you are going to conclude whether to agree or to not to agree with your hypothesis. And the last one is to communicate the results. So, how are you going to publish your results when after you have concluded your experiment, or after you have made a conclusion of your experiment? Okay, so to elaborate furthermore the steps of the scientific method. So, what is your problem? Problem is develop a question or a problem that can be solved through experimentation. So, your problem should be smart. So, smart means your problem should be smart. SMART is an acronym which defines a problem, or what are you going to achieve in the furthest. Okay, so SMART mean S. It should be specific. So it should be something that you have to focus on. Therefore, you are not going to go further, or you are not going into some different thing that involves your specific problem. Number two, it is measurable. It is measurable in a way that you are going to have data for you to be able to analyze what you have, what the data that appeared in your experiment. It should be achievable. So, for example, we are going to test your problem is, how are aliens living outside of our solar system? So that is not achievable because we don't have aliens here for us to observe. Next, it has to be realistic, as what I've said. It has to be something that you can touch, you can smell, you can hear, you can taste, and so on. And it has to be time bounded. So even though you are trying to experiment on something, you must put a due date, or you must put a specific time on when you are going to finish this specific problem. Okay. Next is observation or research. So make observations and research on your topic of interest. So this sometimes differ on what your topics are. There were no specific topics on the problem that you are trying to solve or trying to experiment on. So what you're going to do is research on the things that you have to observe for you to be able to come up with a specific answer or data. Next, formulate hypothesis. This is your prediction, what you're going to what you're looking forward to. So predict a possible answer to the problem or question. So for example, your question is, if soil temperature rises, the plant growth will increase. So this is your hypothesis. And the next one is experiment. So develop and follow a procedure. So experimentation must follow procedure for it to be effective. So therefore, if procedure is not followed according, you will achieve a result that is not complementing to what your hypothesis is. Include a detailed material list. So this is an experiment. It has to have a material list. So therefore, you are not allowed to pick things that is not listed on the materials, because it could affect what your experiment will show, and the outcome must be measurable. So it must be quantifiable. So it could be measured in weight, in volume, etc., etc. Okay, the next one, collect and analyze result. So as what you can see in the GIF that I have here, the first one is to collect. What are you going to collect? Collect the things that you need, collect the things that involves your question or that involves your hypothesis, and so on. Next is you are sort. What are you going to sort? Example, the same shapes, the same the same gender, the same color of skin, the same color of eyes, and so on. And what you're going to do next is to interpret or analyze. So modify the procedure if needed, if you need it to, but most likely it's going to be like this. Confirm the result by retesting, even though you have conducted the experiment. Even though you have already conducted the experiment, you can redo the experiment for you to say that your experiment would arrive on the same answer. So include tables, graphs, and photographs of what you have collected and analyzed. The next one is conclusion. Conclusion. It include a statement that accepts or rejects your hypothesis. So example, when the temperature rises, plant grows also increase. So that is your hypothesis. So what you're going to do for conclusion, you are going to agree whether you will agree or disagree to the hypothesis that you have made. For example, you have already experimented, you have already gathered the data, but then it didn't show that your hypothesis is agreeable, or the data that you've collected doesn't agree with your hypothesis. Therefore, you are going to conclude that the hypothesis is rejected. So make recommendation for further study and possible improvements to the procedure. So what are the things that you saw while gathering data, while experimenting? What are the things that you saw that could further improve your problem? Not the hypothesis, but your problem. Okay. So how are you going to communicate your results? So be prepared to present the project to an audience, whether it could be online, it could be face-to-face, but more likely in our situation, communicate the results. Be prepared to present the project to an audience. Expect questions from the audience. So this is very helpful because you are going to produce or you are going to publish what you have already experimented on, what you have observed. So this is to prove that your question has already gone, experimentation has already gone the scientific method. So someone asks you a question and you know what you have experimented on. Just be confident on everything that you have learned and you have gathered all throughout the experiment that you did. On our next meeting, I am going to formulate a specific problem in which there are scientific method involved, and what are the things, what are the examples that we are going to be presenting. I am going to be presenting to you on a much realistic approach when it comes to scientific method, not just you imagining things. Okay, so before I end my lesson, I would like to thank everyone for listening. And if you have any questions, you can ask me on our live webinar afterwards. So that will be all on this lesson. Thanks and goodbye.